Hello, 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 hello. I've got a really big announcement I am about to make. But first, I want to thank my friends at Parks Casino. Parks Casino really is my casino of choice. Action, excitement, headline, entertainment. So much going on at the Excite Center. Concerts, comedy, MMA, boxing. It's all there. Plus, thousands of slots, live table games, a state of the art sports book, beautiful poker room, collection of award winning restaurants. That's why they say Parks Casino, this is how you win. It's Pennsylvania's #1 casino. Okay, who's upcoming? How about Scotty McCreery from American Idol? Magician Michael Carbonaro, superstar Lee Bryce, comedian Larry the Cable Guy, comedian Trevor Wallace, comedian Mark Normand. Get some dinner before the show. Play cards, go enjoy the program. The whole entertainment complex is fabulous and nice place to get out of inclement weather, which is coming our way. ParksCasino.com to buy tickets for all the shows. Parks Casino, this is how you win. You've got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thank you, Parks Casino. Gang, special announcement. Smur Comics 2024 all sold out. A lot of people were disappointed they couldn't get one. I haven't checked on eBay recently, but the last I saw, there were some insane transactions, at least insane prices for the book. However, here's the good news. The good news is that starting now, all of the illustrations, the complete package for Smur Comics 2024 is now digitally available for free on my website. And I know for those who wish they had a hard copy like this to put on their coffee table, maybe not as good, but a pretty cool benefit nonetheless. So enjoy. And what's really neat is we're releasing it a chapter at a time, so in installments. And it's really cool the way that it's set up. Thank you, David Yang. Thank you, Maya, for the work that it took the two of you to make this a reality. But you can just click through the pages. And there's even a funny sound effect as you flip through the pages, and you can relive, laugh, cry, enjoy the 2024 presidential election. I'm so proud of this book. I am so proud of this book and the work that went into it and the money that we raised for the Children's Crisis Treatment Center. And I'm sympathetic to those who didn't get in, even though they were warned, and wish they had a copy. But at least now everyone can go to Smerconish.com right on the homepage and enjoy the book. And, identify what was your favorite of the cartoons. I have so many faves. In fact, behind me, I've got a number of my faves that as they were initially drawn, I would print them out on my color printer at home and bring them in and pin them up. So enjoy. Now everybody can enjoy Smur Comics 2024. All right, let's get rolling. So the poll question today is simple. It's simple on one level, whether the Treasury should discontinue manufacturing the penny. And yet I see it as part of a much more complicated picture. For some among us, there is a 5-alarm fire burning right now. And in their view of the world, the arsonist is Donald Trump. And the country is ablaze. Consider a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. This morning, as I did my very early morning read-in, I saw dual headlines at CNN.com. One of them, Trump's push to follow campaign promises threatens rule of law. And then another, in his rush to wield vast power, the new commander-in-chief is gambling with global stability. Okay, so that's one depiction. And then I referenced this yesterday. There was that editorial in the New York Times which said, for goodness sake, don't tune out now because the stakes are too great. Quote, don't get distracted, don't get overwhelmed, don't get paralyzed and pulled into the chaos that President Trump and his allies are purposely creating with volume and speed of executive orders, the effort to dismantle the federal government, the performative attacks on immigrants, transgender people, the very concept of diversity itself, the demands that other countries accept Americans as their new overlords, and on and on and on. With all of these very serious things playing out, don't tune out. The country can't afford your lack of attention. Then another story. This was also in the Times. Scholars say he's created a constitutional crisis. Do you see a theme with all of these stories? There's no universally accepted definition of a constitutional crisis, but legal scholars agree about some of the characteristics. It is generally the product of a presidential defiance of laws and judicial rulings. It is not binary. It's a slope, not a switch. It can be cumulative. And once it starts, it can get much worse. And then they quote Erwin Chemerinsky, who is a friend of this program, a frequent guest, a really bright guy, the dean of law school at the University of California, Berkeley, who says, we are in the midst of a constitutional crisis right now. Then there's the Washington Post, Dan Diamond, who was a guest on this program last week, in a story talking about how Trump is pushing ahead as Democrats and the courts seek to stop him. And then, in keeping with this view of the world, I looked up in my studio this morning. I jotted down the time, 6:10 a.m. I look up at the three television monitors that are in the studio, MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. MSNBC's headline on the Chiron, because I have them muted. GOP senators brush off concerns administration won't comply with court orders, okay, in keeping with the Washington Post and CNN and the New York Times. By the way, the New York Times, page one above the fold headline today, a showdown emerges over the limits of presidential power. CNN, similarly, Trump says judges shouldn't be dictating what you're supposed to do. All of this tug between competing branches of government. Over on Fox, however, a totally different depiction. Trump gets to work on common sense agenda. And I thought, there's something in that presentation that is worthy of our analysis amidst all the other five-alarm fire stories that are being published and promoted in the media. And then it occurred to me, yesterday I spoke of how CBS News says Donald Trump's approval rating is at 53%, which is a high watermark for him. That's low for where a new president historically would be, but for Trump to be more favorably viewed than unfavorably viewed, that's rare. That didn't happen at all during his first 4 years in office. And today, USA Today covers the CBS News story because they realize the significance of a 53% approval rating. Pew, however, said that it's really at 47%, although Pew analyzed where does Trump have more positive than negative standing. It's among men, white adults, adults 50 and older, and those with a high school diploma or less. Okay? So I think I can explain this disconnect. How is Trump, if you accept the CBS number, hell, if you accept the Pew number, how is Trump where he is given all the controversy that seemingly surrounds this, 4-week-old now administration? I think I can do it by presenting two financially related stories. One is there's an essay written by 4 former Treasury secretaries. It's in the category of five-alarm fire. While significant data privacy, cybersecurity, and national security threats are gravely concerning, the constitutional issues are perhaps even more alarming. We take the extraordinary step of writing this piece because we are alarmed about the risks of arbitrary and capricious political control of federal payments, which would be unlawful and corrosive to our democracy. Arbitrary and capricious political control of federal payments. I read that, the work of Robert Rubin, Lawrence Summers, Timothy Geithner, Jacob Lew, and Janet Yellen, and I said, how many Americans are going to understand? They're going to get the level of concern expressed by former Treasury secretaries, but how many are really going to appreciate and understand the essence of what they're saying? As compared with another financial story, also in today's newsletter, Donald Trump wants to stop the Treasury from continuing to manufacture the penny. Or as I put the headline on it, stop making cents, CENTS, Why? It costs 3.7 cents to make a single penny. The number keeps escalating. They're mostly zinc. They're not much copper anymore. A lot of people just don't even want them. Do you know that Americans throw away as much as 68 million a year in coins? A lot of people just don't want the hassle of a penny, especially as we move toward a cashless society. Others, by the way, and there's a whole debate about whether we should stop use of the penny. Others say, well, people are going to round up and it will be inflationary. And by the way, the most interesting thing that I read about the penny debate, factor this in, it could drive up the use of the nickel, except the 5-cent coin cost nearly fill in the blank. How much do you think it cost to make a nickel last year? 14 cents. 14 cents. So the argument is, where does this lead? Notwithstanding concerns over the nickel, I note that this is pretty popular according to the polling. I read a Washington Post story talking about whether we should do this, and there were a lot of comments from people who said, I don't like Trump, but I like this idea. For example, I say this as a Trump hater. This is the first sane thing that he's done, maybe in his life. Australia did this years ago, and when I was there, it was great. Makes me rethink its wisdom, however, because by definition, he's a moron. Or somebody else who said Trump wants to go down in history as the president utterly without sense. CENTS. Anyway, people giving him props who don't normally for this being a good idea. And go vote at Smerconish.com, because that is the poll question of the day today. Should the Treasury stop making pennies? I think many people are weighing in just with a rote reply because they know Trump wants to do it, therefore they go the other way. But I see this as part of a much larger narrative to go back to all of the 5-alarm fire stories and why that doesn't seem to be making an impact on Donald Trump's standing. And here's where I come out, in line with that Fox News chyron, where they said he's implementing a common sense agenda. It's all in keeping with his populist approach to politics. Think about it. Google just agreed yesterday that relative to Google Maps in the United States, because there's a little nuance here, but if you access Google Maps in the United States, it will now be the Gulf of America. If you access Google Maps in Mexico, it'll be the Gulf of Mexico. But at least from the perspective of Americans, Trump is getting what he wants relative to the Gulf of America. Okay, how about the straws? The straws, right? Plastic straws work, paper straws suck, pun intended. I think that Donald Trump is on the side of the populist view of the world that put him in office when he comes out against paper straws. Michael, are you really equating threats to democracy and the rule of law with straws and what we call? I could just hear the critics already. No, I'm trying to explain to you why all the 5-alarm fire headlines aren't working. They're not impacting his standing. His standing, according to CBS, is higher than it's ever been. And it's because many people are tuned out on the rule of law and the Treasury secretaries and the language that they're using in trying to fire people up about Donald Trump, but they can understand the penny. They can understand the Gulf of America. They can understand that paper straws don't work. I'll give you another one. You know what else they can understand? Having just watched the Super Bowl, they can understand that the kickoff rule, as Trump said, is weird. I get it. I get it. They're trying to spare players from CTE, right? But it looks weird. And when Trump says, hey, that's a weird kickoff, again, I think it just registers with folks. His comment about Harry. He's not going to deport Harry, as if he had the power to deport Harry, because Harry's got enough problems with his wife. When Trump says that Harry is henpecked, it goes in the category of the straw and the penny and the Gulf of America. The bottom line is this, at least as I see it: tariffs are confusing. They're serious business. The tariff on steel and aluminum is a front page story, legitimately, that won't be read by many people. Whether Donald Trump has constitutional authority to reduce the size of government without congressional involvement, I think most people shrug their shoulders and don't know the answer and don't want to be invested in it. But what to call a body of water that separates us from Mexico is good barroom chatter. Or whether it'd be cool to incorporate Canada as a 51st state, notwithstanding that they don't want to be a 51st state, or Greenland. Or whether pennies are a pain, or the NFL kickoff looks weird, that paper straws suck, and that many think Harry has been browbeaten into leaving the royal family to come to the United States because of Meghan. I mean, it's a similar argument that I was making about USAID. When Trump puts out the soundbite, or the White House puts out the soundbite that, we're spending $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, that resonates with people. Even if there's more to the story, like I took the time on radio yesterday and on CNN on Saturday to explain relative to Sesame Street and the $20 million spent in Iraq. But most Americans are not sticking around for the explanation. It's far easier to hear that we're spending on a transgender comic book in Peru and not ask another question about it. I mean, I identified William Proxmire and his Golden Fleece Awards as an example of how this has always been, pointing out so-called waste, fraud, and abuse. It's always been very effective. Proxmire served longer than anybody else from Wisconsin in the U.S. Senate. And yesterday, we took a detour on the radio program and talked about screw worms. And then there was the example of the money that was spent to measure the body size of stewardesses. And I wondered aloud if there were a legitimate reason to know the size of stewardesses, and TC found it in a moment. There'd been a horrific plane crash. And relative to cabin design going forward, the government felt it necessary to spend, in today's dollars, just under $300,000 to learn more about the body size of the people who would ride in the plane. So what am I saying? I'm saying he's reaching people on their level. There are two conversations going on in this country, okay? One of them is on the front page of the New York Times today. And another is out in workplaces, to the extent that people are in their workplaces, and bar rooms in the aftermath of the Super Bowl all around the country. And Donald Trump is a master. He is a master at reaching people on the conversational level. So don't discount his political skill in this regard, while all the academics and the editorial pages are saying that there's a 5-alarm fire. He's, politically speaking, he's doing just fine. Having said that, I would like to know what you think about the penny. Should the U.S. Treasury stop minting new pennies? Go vote at Smerconish.com on that poll question. See ya.